Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Check out the link below, fool.com/the smattering, to get access to the 10 best stocks to buy right now. Shares of SoFi Technologies are absolutely on a run, up about 26% already this week. I'm Jason Hall. This is The Smattering. Got Jeff Santoro here with me, and I'm going to talk about the big news that's behind this big run for SoFi and why it's still worth buying even after these big gains. Hey, what's up, Jeff?
Hey, no, I'm happy about this one because I've been watching SoFi from the sidelines for a while and still learning about it. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say here. So I guess my first question is what's caused the recent run up in the stock price?
In just a handful of words, this big run up is because of the debt ceiling deal that the White House and Congress finally reached. And it looks like it's moving through. And hopefully, we're going to see the legislation hit the president's desk for a signature very soon. Maybe by the time you see this video, that might already be done. But there's a part of that deal that's really, really, really good for SoFi.
Okay, so what is that thing that's in the legislation that's so good for SoFi?
So the main thing is that SoFi now has a huge overhang that's been removed from it. If you remember, one of the parts of the relief that was provided to consumers during the COVID pandemic was a moratorium on student loan payments. That's a really, really big part of SoFi's loan book, and it's one of the reasons why its stock has lagged so much for multiple years now. Is there's been a lot of concern about between loan forgiveness talks. When was that ever going to get resolved? And now, because that was part of the deal that Republicans insisted on being included in the package, there's no longer the concern that President Biden might sign an extension of that moratorium. And that means cash flows are going to start kicking back up for SoFi. And that's a real positive thing.
And I would assume that the reason the jump is so big is because that probably wasn't baked, debt relief going away probably wasn't baked into the share price because I don't think anyone was thinking that might be part of this particular deal.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just it had become a little bit of a political football, and there was a lot of concern that the Biden administration was going to keep using it to try to appeal to younger voters, maybe. And obviously, we like to try to take our politics and separate it from investing. But in this case, you kind of have to know what's going on, and nobody expected this to happen. And that's just a real positive sign for SoFi. But the other part of it too is a lot of banks, right? They do carry some treasuries on their books, right? As part of their liquidity, it's a good safe place to put cash. And now that's another overhang that's been removed from SoFi and just about every other bank too, since that those treasuries they're worth what they're supposed to be worth, since there's no concerns about the government defaulting on them. So you put all those things together, and it's just really good news for SoFi. And it's after no good news for banks for a while. This is two real positive things.
So you mentioned how the stock's been running up since, we got the good news about the debt ceiling deal. So why even after that run up do you think it's worth buying right now? Like why shouldn't we just wait for another dip?
So there's it's still a pretty big dip. If you look at this stock and you go back, this is one of the Chamath IPO SPAC deals, and it's still way down from when it went public via SPAC, and for good reason, right? There's a lot of SPACs that were trash that so there's that reputational harm that it's been dealing with, and again, it has some really high customer acquisition costs, so it's still dealing with trying to bring those costs down. But we see like a clear path to profitability. Management's been really good about hitting their promises. And even after this big run up, it's still really cheap. You're talking about 1.2 times book value. And that's really, really reasonable for a high growth bank, particularly one that also owns a really good fintech product that has a payments product as well. That if you think about 1.2 times book value for a bank and a good, high profitability payments platform as well, that's a great price. You look at the growth rate of this business, you look at its actual size in terms of total assets, it's still really small. It's like a small regional bank at this point in terms of its total size. There is a tremendous amount of room for it to continue to grow. Being able to buy it for this price with this much more certainty about its future cash flows, I think it's absolutely worth buying.